So OpenIPC is an open source digital HD system, but the DIY nature of it in the past has made it a bit of a labour of love. But today I'm going to show you a product that aims to change that and turn it more into the finished, polished, plug and play product we're used to from companies like DJI and WalkSnail. So this is that product. This is the Runcam WiFiLink version 2. Now, for full disclosure, I have been sent this by Runcam and I do intend to keep using it after I finish this video. But Runcam have had no creative control over this video and they haven't seen it before I've uploaded it to YouTube. So, the first Runcam link was a bit of an alpha product. The camera control board and the Wi-Fi board, which is the part that broadcasts the signal, were on two separate boards arranged in a stack configuration. And this wasn't ideal for obvious reasons. If you had any sort of crash that was hard enough, that would probably have broke. It was also using an off-the-shelf Wi-Fi card, whereas what Runcam have done here is they've designed an all-in-one unit, which they've encased nicely in this heatsink with a fan on top. And it is starting to look more like the kind of air units we're used to from companies like DJI and WalkSnail. In fact, if we take a look at my 5-inch freestyle drone, you can see that the dimensions are pretty much the same as the original Cadex Vista, but it is just a little bit higher thanks to the fan. However, if we look underneath, we can see that they haven't gone for the 20mm by 20mm mounting screws, and instead we have a 25mm by 25mm pattern on the Runcam WiFiLink. So bear that in mind if you're sizing it up for a frame. So if we have a look at the back, we've got two IPEX connectors in there, and they are connected to these quite long linear whip antennas. Since you have got IPEX connectors in there, you will be able to use any FPV antenna you want. Now, if we look around the side, we'll see a port labelled RJ45. And that is actually for the included Ethernet cable. So that will just plug in there, and this actually plugs into the LAN port on your computer. And that is kind of a throwback to the IP security camera nature of OpenIPC. I'm wondering if in the future that can be changed to something a little bit more easier, like a USB, because you are going to have to connect to the OpenIPC configurator to change settings on the camera and the VTX. And obviously a USB would be a lot more convenient than an Ethernet cable, because let's face it, a lot of laptops these days don't come with LAN ports, and a lot of people use laptops these days. So also at the rear of the air unit, we can see a port that says to flight controller. And for me, that already makes it a lot better than the Cadex Vista, where all you need to do is plug in the HD connector that comes with your flight controller, if it does so. You have got the solder pads there if you would like to solder, but this is going to be a lot simpler for a lot of people. So I can just show you a demonstration of that. So what I have got here is a SpeedyBee F405 Wing Mini, and as we can see on the bottom, it's got a HD video connector, and all we need to do is plug that into the Runcam WiFiLink, making sure, of course, that we get it the right way around. And for a lot of people, that is going to be a lot simpler than soldering. And of course, if you are wondering, the OSD works exactly the same with OpenIPC as it does with DJI and WalkSnail. You'll just go into the Ports tab in iNav or Betaflight and configure it the same as any other HD digital system, and you'll have full working OSD. And the last thing we need to look at is the camera unit, which is the same form factor we're all used to on 5-inch drones. So the camera is actually a Sony IMX415, which is a 4K capable CMOS sensor, although unfortunately you're not going to be able to get 4K out of this system. You will be able to produce an image which is 1080p 60 frames per second, 1080p 100 frames per second, or 720p 120 frames per second. So if we compare the Runcam WiFiLink to my DIY air unit here, you can really see the effort that Runcam have put in to shrink this down to a form factor that we're more used to, as this would probably be too big to fit on a 5-inch drone, and definitely not on anything smaller. Although I still enjoy the DIY nature of OpenIPC. If you're so inclined, you can choose a sensor, you can choose a lens, and you can choose a Wi-Fi chip that you want, and you can customize your own air unit to your heart's content. And if you're not inclined, you can buy a finished product just like this one. So currently the easiest way to get a video feed would be to plug in the included USB adapter. So that does actually come with the Runcam WiFiLink. And then what you're going to do is on your phone, you're going to run an app called Pixel Pilot. So what I'll do is I'll just go plug in the WiFiLink, and then you'll see the video feed here. And there we go. So you can actually see there we are getting a video feed directly to our phone. However, you can see the delay is currently 10 milliseconds. Now, that's not total delay, that's added on to the delay you get with obviously the camera and the processing on the camera side. So this is probably the easiest way to do it, but I probably wouldn't recommend you do it this way due to the limitations. What I actually use this for is I actually use it for a backup. When I fly, I use my ground station with a 10-inch screen, and I use this just in the boot of my car for any reason, like if my VRX was to go down, my screen was to break, I can then run to my backup and I have this backup running. So the way I would recommend you would receive the signal is with this, which is a VRX similar to the ones you're going to get with Walk Snail or HD0. However, this is a DIY solution. Now, it's based on a single board computer, much like the Raspberry Pi, but this is the Redaxer, which is even smaller and even cheaper. And if you look there, there's the micro HDMI. So this is going to output HDMI video that you can see on your screen or in your goggles. Now, of course, this is not a plug and play solution. You're going to have to try and find one of these for sale or build it yourself. If you are looking for a plug and play solution, Runcam are actually working on a VRX of their own, and that's scheduled for a release at the end of the month. I did try and get hold of one for this review. They are in pre-production, so they are quite rare. Hopefully, if this video does well, I will get one of those on the channel to show you just how simple it is. But in the meantime, I will put down in the description some videos where you can see the Runcam VRX in action. Okay then, so that's enough time on the bench. Let's go check out some flight footage. So here we are out in the field with the Runcam WiFiLink 2 attached to my plane. And that is actually the mount you can find on their website. You can get the STL and you can 3D print it yourself. So for this, I will be using my DIY ground station with a 10-inch screen. And I will have a backup running on Pixel Pilot on my phone, attached to the Wi-Fi adapter that comes with the Runcam link. However, like I said, I don't recommend this for anything more than a backup, and now is exactly why. I'm having trouble with it not connecting for some reason. You just have to keep plugging it in and out, in and out, in and out until it finally recognizes it. I don't know why, but that's just the way it is. Okay, so Pixel Pilot is now working and my ground station is booting up. Hopefully we'll get a signal soon. And there we go, we've got a signal from the ground station. Okay, let's chuck it up in the air and see what happens. Okay, so we're running on the ground station, okay. Just got it going forward in cruise mode. And if we look down in the ground, we can see our backup running on the phone. Oh, a little bit of breakup there on the phone, but nothing on the ground station. So obviously the ground station is going to give you a lot better performance. Now also I am recording this on the ground station SD card, so you're going to see all the breakup. You can actually record on board, but that feature is a little bit buggy at the moment. Apparently you will be able to record in 4K, but like I said, it is buggy at the moment, so we're just going to use the ground station. And I think we've actually just lost signal. So I'm going to hit return to home. That was strange. Let's see if we get the signal back. There we go. Yeah, so do you want to put this on a freestyle quad? Maybe not. Maybe not. So it was actually at this point I was getting so much breakup, it was becoming unflyable. And for some reason, the closer I got, the breakup was still the same. The signal quality wasn't getting better as I returned to home. So the only thing I was able to do was to abandon sitting down at the screen and land the plane line of sight. So if you pay attention, you'll actually see me on the left-hand side as I land. So I am, of course, using the default Runcam antennas because I'm trying to simulate a new user experience that may not have better antennas to put on their air unit. I'm also using channel 161, which is the default that Runcam sets. So in the end, we managed to push out to about 600 meters before the link quality became unflyable. The thing that concerns me is that the link didn't improve as I got closer, as I came back to home. It just continued to stay terrible, forcing me to land the plane line of sight. So after that test, I actually went to a different location and I changed channels. There is something on the Telegram group about the default Runcam antennas not being correctly tuned to 5.8 gigahertz. So I'm actually using, I think it's channel 64 here, which is a lot closer to 5.3 gigahertz, which is what the antennas are actually tuned for. Unfortunately, the performance didn't really improve, and actually it got even worse. You see, I'm only about just approaching 200 meters here, and already we're getting terrible breakup. So yeah, this is where I just flick the return to home switch, because the amount of breakup I was getting was unflyable. So if you're wondering, this is actually recorded on my phone. So I'm actually using the default USB adapter that Runcam provide, and I'm recording this on my phone using Pixel Pilot. And again, unfortunately, the performance is just really not good for this test as well. You know, if this wasn't a plane running iNav, which has automatic return to home, this would have been a lost plane. And if I couldn't land this line of sight, it would have been a lost plane too. Okay, so we're now at a third location. I'm using a different channel again. We're now on channel 149 and we're going to test it out. And to cut a long story short, I get much of the same results. As I get to about 100 meters away from me, the breakup becomes completely unflyable. Even just circling around my head, maximum distance 120 meters, the breakup is just so bad that it's impossible to fly this FPV, and I end up having to land it line of sight yet again.
I'm not really sure what's wrong with my unit. Maybe I've been given a defective unit, I don't know, because there are people, other YouTubers and people on the OpenIPC Telegram group which are actually getting good results with the Runcam WiFiLink. They are, however, using better antennas than me, I think, and I think they are using custom configurations, whereas I'm using the default Runcam antennas and I'm also using the default Runcam configuration as I'm trying to simulate how a new user would approach this. So I'm actually going to call the video finished there. I will revisit this in the future if I do manage to solve the problem, but I've already delayed this video long enough, so I'm going to put it out there. If you would like to see future videos where hopefully I do fix the Runcam WiFiLink 2, you can subscribe and I'll see you in the next video.